I used to think marriage was about being a team. You lift each other up, you communicate, you care, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That was how I saw it. So when I noticed the growing distance between me and Jessica, I brought it up not as a confrontation, but as a plea. I sat down with her one night after dinner. No yelling, no drama. Just a quiet conversation in the living room while the dishwasher hummed in the background. I told her I missed her, that I felt like we were slowly becoming roommates who shared bills and space, not a life. I thought she'd meet me halfway. Instead, she met me with something else entirely. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't get defensive. She just looked at me with this blank expression, not cold, just empty, and said, "I don't have to make you happy." And that was it. No follow-up. No explanation. She turned her attention back to folding laundry like she hadn't just said something that would replay in my head for weeks. I didn't respond right away because, honestly, I didn't know how. It felt like someone had pulled the floor out from under me. It wasn't just that sentence. It was the way she said it, like it was a universal truth, like she'd been waiting to say it. And the terrifying thing? She meant it. There was no hesitation in her voice, no sadness or regret, just certainty. It wasn't said out of anger. It was just stated, like a fact. I don't have to make you happy. For a few minutes, I sat there watching her fold my t-shirts into neat rectangles, and the silence between us roared in my ears. I wanted to ask if she was serious. I wanted to say, "But you're supposed to want to," but the look on her face made it clear that would be a waste of breath. That night, I lay in bed next to her, wide awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was next to a stranger. She fell asleep quickly, her breathing slow and steady, while I kept hearing her words echo inside me. I don't have to make you happy. It was such a simple sentence, but it unraveled years of assumptions. I kept thinking about all the small ways I'd try to make her happy. Picking up her favorite wine on the way home, staying up late to help her with work when she was overwhelmed, rubbing her back when she couldn't sleep, making dumb jokes just to see her smile. I wasn't trying to keep score, but in that moment it all felt so lopsided. The next morning, nothing had changed. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just redrawn the entire map of our relationship. I watched her walk out the door with her travel mug and neat hair and that same expressionless calm, and I felt this hollow settle into my chest. It wasn't just what she said, it was what it revealed, that maybe, somewhere along the line, she had stopped seeing us as a partnership, that maybe she didn't think happiness was a shared goal anymore. Maybe she hadn't for a long time, and I just hadn't noticed, or maybe I had, and I just didn't want to believe it. I didn't bring it up again. I didn't know how to, because how do you argue with someone who doesn't believe your happiness is their concern? How do you fight for something the other person has quietly stopped caring about? That sentence changed everything. Not in a dramatic, one moment we're married, the next we're divorced kind of way, but in a slow, sinking realization that the foundation I thought we had wasn't there anymore, that I was standing in the ruins of something I thought was solid. And the worst part? She didn't even seem to notice. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't care. After that night, it was like something inside me finally clicked into place, and not in a good way. I started going back through every memory with her, re-examining moments I'd brushed off or explained away. I remembered the mornings I used to leave little notes for her on the kitchen counter. Nothing fancy, just small things like, "Good luck with your meeting," or "I hope your day is better than yesterday." She never once left anything for me. Not a sticky note, not a text, nothing. I didn't think much of it at the time. Figured maybe she just didn't express herself the same way. But looking at it now, it wasn't about different love languages or personality quirks. It was a pattern, a long, consistent pattern of one-sided effort. I remember the surprise dates I used to plan, booking reservations at restaurants she mentioned in passing, driving across town to pick up the obscure cake she liked from that one bakery. She'd smile sometimes, but she never planned anything for me, not even a movie night, not a casual, "Hey, let's go somewhere just the two of us." I did the chasing even after I caught her, thinking that's what love was supposed to look like. Choosing someone over and over again, but she never chose me back, not in any active way. She just accepted it, like my effort was the price of being with her. I remembered how she used to come home from work and immediately start venting. I always listened, no matter how tired I was. I gave her my full attention, sat with her, asked questions, let her unload everything. But if I ever tried to talk about my day, it was different. She'd listen for a minute, then glance at her phone or start scrolling through her laptop. I'd be mid-sentence, and she'd interrupt with, "Hang on, I just need to reply to this. Half the time, she never came back to the conversation. And still, I convinced myself she was just distracted or stressed. I never let myself believe the truth that was now so obvious. The eye rolls were constant, too, now that I think about it. Every time I brought up something that mattered to me, or asked for more affection, or pointed out how distant she felt, there it was, that dismissive look, like I was being dramatic, like my emotions were an inconvenience. If I ever said I felt lonely, she'd laugh and say, "You're not alone, I'm literally right here," completely missing the point, or maybe refusing to see it at all. And I let it slide again and again, because the alternative, accepting that the person you love doesn't care to understand you, is unbearable when you're still hoping for change. Then there were the texts. She'd go hours without replying, sometimes all day, and yet I'd see her liking posts, commenting on photos, uploading stories. I knew she was on her phone. Everyone's on their phone. I just wasn't a priority. She always had some excuse. I forgot. I was busy. I didn't think it needed a response. But when someone matters to you, you don't forget them. You don't stay silent all day while broadcasting your attention to the world. That wasn't forgetfulness. That was indifference, plain and sharp. Even the intimacy had become mechanical, not just physical, but everything, hugs, kisses, conversations. There was a time when she used to look at me like I mattered, like she saw me. But that faded so gradually that I didn't even realize it was gone until there was nothing left but silence between us during dinner. The kind of silence that's not peaceful, but suffocating. And all along I kept making excuses. She's tired, she's overwhelmed. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough. I convinced myself that if I just held on tighter, things would get better. But her words that night, "I don't have to make you happy," they tore through the last of my denial like a blade. Suddenly everything made sense, all at once. This wasn't a relationship built on mutual love and effort. This was me holding everything up on my own, while she barely acknowledged the weight. It had never been hidden. It had always been right there in front of me. I just didn't want to see it. But now I couldn't unsee it. And the truth was as ugly as it was simple. She never saw me the way I saw her. She never tried. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't even sigh. Something in me just shut down, like a breaker switch being flipped in the dark. I sat there for a while after she went to bed, staring at the spot where she stood just hours before, saying those words that would not leave my head. "I don't have to make you happy." Fine. If that was a new reality, then mine would change too. No more bending myself into shapes for someone who couldn't even be bothered to care. No more chasing. No more reaching. If my happiness wasn't her concern, then her comfort wasn't mine anymore either. The scales would finally start to balance, even if that meant pulling my weight back entirely. The next morning, I got up before my alarm. I moved quietly but deliberately. I didn't start the coffee maker like I usually did. I didn't iron her work blouse like I sometimes did when I knew she had an early client. I didn't pack her a snack into the lunch she often forgot to assemble for herself. I didn't say good morning. I didn't even look in her direction as I pulled on my coat and keys and stepped out the front door. There was no kiss, no soft joke, no reminder to drive safe, just silence. The same kind she'd given me for years, only this time it was mine to give, and it came easy. Driving to work, I felt something close to clarity. Not peace exactly, but precision. The weight I carried, the emotional burden of trying to keep our relationship alive while pretending I wasn't suffocating. It didn't vanish, but it shifted. I wasn't holding it for both of us anymore. I let it settle where it belonged, and I drove through the gray streets of early morning without a single glance at my phone. I used to check in, send her a text by the first red light. Something stupid like, "Fog's bad, don't forget your jacket." Or, "Traffic's hell, take the long way." That day, my phone stayed face down. I could feel it buzz in my pocket halfway through my commute, and I knew it was her. Probably something like, "Did you leave already?" Maybe she noticed the missing kiss, the empty coffee pot, the silence. But I didn't answer. I didn't even read it. Let her wonder, the way I had wondered all those times she left me unread. Too busy scrolling through Instagram to reply. Too occupied with anything but me. At work, I didn't mention to anyone. No venting. No dramatic story about what had shifted. This wasn't about performance or attention. It wasn't revenge either. It was a quiet rebellion, measured and intentional. I kept my head down, got my tasks done, answered emails, and kept my mind where it needed to be. But underneath it all, There was this low hum of change, steady and deliberate, like the sound of a train picking up speed. When I got home, I didn't ask how her day when I didn't bring home the wine she liked. Didn't ask if she'd eaten. I walked past her on the couch and went straight to the bedroom. She glanced up at me, expecting something, maybe a comment or a complaint, but I gave her nothing. Just that same silence she had given me so many times, polished now into something she could finally hear, something she could finally feel. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was just going to stop carrying what she clearly never cared to hold. I didn't make a scene. I didn't slam doors or ice her out in some melodramatic way. I just started removing myself quietly and methodically, bit by bit. I let go of all the small things I used to do that kept this relationship moving forward, the things she never seemed to notice, or worse, took for granted. I stopped texting her during the day. No more "how's your meeting going?" or "want me to pick up dinner?" The check-in stopped. The mental labor stopped. If she left dishes in the sink, I left them. If she left her clothes on the floor, they stayed there. I didn't vacuum. I didn't fold her laundry. I didn't remind her of appointments or birthdays or deadlines. For the first few days, she didn't even flinch. She was used to me handling things, used to the invisible rhythm of support I kept giving without asking for anything in return. When I didn't make dinner, she ordered takeout without a word. When I didn't fill the car with gas like I usually did before her long drives, she huffed about it, but still didn't say anything. I watched her try to navigate a world where I wasn't silently propping up her comfort, and it was like watching someone try to drive a car that's always been on autopilot. Frustrated, confused, but not quite sure what's even changed. She kept acting like it was just a mood, like I was going through something I'd eventually snap out of. She tried to toss me casual smiles, made a few half-hearted jokes, even sat next to me on the couch one night and rested her hand on my leg. I didn't move away. I didn't reject her, but I didn't reach for her either. I let her sit there in the silence she'd once given me, not cold, just quiet, emotionally vacant. Exactly what she'd been to me for years. After a week, the confusion finally started showing on her face. She came home one night and found me eating leftovers from the fridge. Not something I had made for both of us, just enough for myself. She paused in the doorway, waiting for me to say something. I didn't. She sat across from me, didn't touch the food, just stared. "Are you okay?" she asked, like she was just now noticing the shift. I didn't look up. I just finished chewing, wiped my mouth, and said, "I'm fine." She asked again, more directly this time. "What's going on with you?" I looked at her then, really looked, and I said it plainly. "My happiness is my responsibility, not yours." Her face changed, not with anger, but with something closer to realization, recognition, like she had heard those words before, but wasn't expecting them to come from me. And the silence that followed said everything. She didn't have a reply. There was no defense, no backtracking, because those were her words. That was the line she drew, and now she was standing on the other side of it, alone. For once, she was the one who didn't get an answer, the one looking for something that wasn't being offered. And I didn't flinch. I just got up, rinsed my plate, and left her sitting at the table in the quiet she helped build. It didn't happen all at once, but slowly, steadily. Her rhythm started to falter. I could see it. In the way she hovered in doorways longer than usual, in the awkward pauses between her words, in the subtle hesitations that never used to be there. She was starting to feel the absence, not just of me physically, but of everything I used to give that she never noticed until it was gone. The quiet reminders, the warmth behind my questions, the effort I poured into the space between us. It had all disappeared, and now she was left trying to fill a silence she never used to hear. She began asking about my day, like I had always done for her. Not casually, but with a deliberate softness, like she was hoping I'd open up again. Sometimes I'd respond. Sometimes I wouldn't. I gave her exactly what she used to give me. Selective presence, filtered replies, enough to keep things civil but never close. I watched her stumble through the same emotional distance she'd once expected me to survive in. She tried cooking one night. It was a recipe I'd made before, something she used to compliment when I served it. The kitchen was a mess. She was never the type to clean as she went, but the effort was there. She set the table, lit a candle even, and I could see the nervous energy in the way she arranged the forks. I thanked her, said it tasted fine, then excused myself early. She stayed at the table, picking at her food, and I didn't look back. She started texting me during the day, not just with updates or reminders, but soft little messages like I used to send her. "Hope your meeting went well. Thinking of you. Let me know if you want to do something for dinner." I didn't always answer. Sometimes I'd see her glance at her phone when it buzzed, expecting a reply, only to lower it slowly when none came. It was strange, watching her reach now, watching her step into the role I had carried alone for so long, the one who initiates, the one who checks in, the one who holds emotional threads together. She offered to run errands, suggested a weekend away, even tried to sit beside me on the couch with her legs touching mine. I didn't move away, but I didn't lean in either. I responded when I felt like it, when it felt genuine, not out of punishment, but because I had learned what it felt like to keep giving to someone who had nothing to give back. I was no longer interested in performing affection for the sake of preserving appearances. She had taught me that silence is an answer, so I gave her the silence she used to hand to me without thinking twice. I saw the frustration creep into her expression after a while, the furrow in her brow when I didn't mirror her efforts, the confusion when her touch didn't pull me in the way it once did. She had expected resistance, maybe even a fight, but she didn't know what to do with stillness. She didn't know what to do when I no longer tried. The emotional labor she'd ignored for years was now hers alone, and I watched her struggle to carry it, one forgotten effort at a time. She thought she could mask it, keep up appearances, with the right expressions around our friends, so no one would suspect anything had changed. But it was there, clear as day. Her laugh was a beat too late. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. She held my arm in public, like it was an obligation, not a connection. I didn't flinch. I let her play the part, let her posture and pretend, because I had nothing left to offer her in that arena. I wasn't interested in saving face. I wasn't interested in performance. And then one evening, when her friends messaged me, someone I hadn't heard from in months, just a short, careful text. "Hey, is everything okay between you and Jess? She seems off lately." That word, off, sat heavy in my chest. It wasn't concern for me. Not really. It was recognition. That even people outside the walls of our home could feel the shift. Now it wasn't just in my head, it wasn't subtle anymore. That night, she finally confronted me. She came into the bedroom while I was changing out of my work clothes, arms crossed, eyes tight with frustration, and said, "Are you trying to punish me? Is that what this is?" Her voice was sharp, but it trembled under the surface. I didn't raise mine. I didn't meet her defensiveness with more of my own. I just looked her in the eye and said, calm and even, "No, I'm just doing what you taught me," not caring she didn't say anything at first. I watched the words hit her like a slow wave, drowning out whatever script she prepared in her head. There was no immediate anger, no denial, just silence. Her mouth opened slightly, as if to say something, but nothing came out. She looked down and then back at me, and for the first time since all this began, I saw fear in her eyes. Not fear of me. I'd never raised a hand or even my voice at her, but fear of what she was losing, fear of what she had already lost without realizing it. She tried to speak again, but the words didn't land. There was no defense strong enough to shield her from the truth she'd been running from, that I had stopped reaching, that I wasn't holding on to the edge anymore, that I had let go. And I think that scared her more than anything else, because for the first time since we'd been together, the power wasn't in her silence or her withdrawal. It was in mine. I didn't move to comfort her. I didn't follow her when she left the room. I just sat on the edge of the bed and kept undoing the buttons on my shirt, feeling the weight shift for real this time, not out of pettiness, not out of revenge, but because I had learned, painfully, finally, that if she didn't care, I didn't have to either. Her fear didn't erupt the way I expected it to. It seeped in slowly, like a leak she couldn't patch fast enough. One morning, she made breakfast, not just poured cereal or slapped toast on a plate, but full breakfast. Eggs, pancakes, even cut up fruit like I used to do for her on weekends. She placed a plate in front of me without a word and sat down across the table, watching me with cautious eyes, waiting for a thank you or a smile or any flicker of the man I used to be. I ate quietly, not out of cruelty, but because I genuinely didn't know what to say anymore. Gratitude felt out of place for a gesture that had come years too late. In public, she reached for my hand again. Her fingers threaded between mine at the grocery store, in line at the pharmacy, while we walked to the car. I let her. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. The connection wasn't there, not in the way it once had been. I used to crave her touch. Now, I only recognized it as a memory of something that used to matter. I noticed how she looked at me during those moments, searching my face for something, warmth, familiarity, maybe hope. But I had nothing left to give. I had spent too many years giving it all away to someone who hadn't noticed until the silence grew louder than any apology could cover. She started crying more, though never in front of me. I could hear it through the walls. Those quiet, choked sobs muffled behind the bathroom door or from under the covers when she thought I was asleep. I didn't go to her. I didn't offer comfort or reach out. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I genuinely couldn't carry her pain anymore. I had carried the weight of both our emotions for so long. I didn't even know what mine felt like until I'd let hers go. And now, hearing her cry didn't stir anger or pity. It just made everything feel heavier. Eventually, the dam broke. She stood in the kitchen one evening, wringing a dish towel in her hands like it was the only thing holding her together. She didn't look at me at first, just stared at the floor and said quietly, "I thought you'd always be there no matter what." Her voice cracked in the last words, and she finally looked up at me, eyes rimmed red, mouth trembling. She meant it. That was the part that struck me. She had genuinely believed I was some permanent fixture, reliable, patient, endlessly forgiving. She had treated my love like a faucet she could turn off and on without consequence, assuming I'd always be on the other end waiting. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just said the one thing that had been circling my mind for weeks, heavy and honest. I don't know if I can do this anymore. That was it. No threats. No drama. Just the truth. Plain and simple. Her face changed instantly. Whatever hope she'd been holding on to slipped from her expression like water through fingers. Her breath caught like she'd been hit in the chest, and I saw it, the panic. Real, raw, suffocating. Not just because she was afraid of losing me, but because, for the first time, she realized I had become someone she could lose. And I had. She begged, not dramatically, not on her knees, but in that quiet, frantic way people beg when they're losing something they never thought would leave. She followed me from room to room, her voice cracking as she made promises I had stopped believing in years ago. She said she would change, that she could be better, that she finally understood what I needed. She said she'd go to therapy, said she'd start showing up the way I always had. She swore she'd never take me for granted again. But I just stood there, letting her words pass through the air like smoke, because I'd already lived through all of it, every version of her delays, every small effort that came too late, every cycle of neglect followed by hollow apologies. I had given her chances she never even noticed. I had waited for her to care, and when she didn't, I taught myself how to stop needing her. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time, but it wasn't love in her eyes. It was fear. Not fear of what she'd done, but of what she was losing. And that's when it became painfully clear she hadn't loved me. Not really. She had loved the role I played, the comfort I brought, the way I made things easier for her. I was a man who filled the fridge, remembered her mother's birthday, kept the gas tank full, made her coffee exactly how she liked it. I was the one who carried the weight of the emotional work, so she didn't have to lift a finger. She hadn't fallen in love with me. She'd fallen in love with what I made her life feel like. And that man, the one who existed to keep her comfortable at the expense of himself, was gone. I had found peace, and it hadn't come from her. It came in the silence of not being dismissed, in the relief of not trying to decode her moods or beg for crumbs of attention. It came from no longer performing worthiness for someone who had already decided I was optional. I discovered a life where I didn't feel small, where my thoughts didn't bounce off blank stares and my needs weren't met with sighs. I found space to breathe, not because someone gave it to me, but because I stopped shrinking myself to fit into the margins of someone else's comfort. She kept trying. For days, maybe weeks, she tried. She cooked. She complimented me. She left notes like I used to leave for her. But none of it reached me, because none of it was for me. It was for the version of me she missed. The man who absorbed her silence without flinching, who filled the void without asking for anything in return. And when that didn't work, when I didn't fall back into the pattern she was so used to, I saw her face fall. That quiet panic returned, not just because I had changed, but because she finally realized she couldn't reach the man she had spent years ignoring. I didn't hate her, but I didn't want her anymore either. That was the part one hadn't expected. I had spent so long wanting her to notice me, to appreciate me, to care. But now that she did, it felt empty, like arriving at the station long after the train was gone. Too little too late, and I had already moved on, not to someone else, but to something else myself.